Federal trial. Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, she is one of Combs' many accusers, testifying as a central witness. Is she ready?
Very ready. Confident.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs.
They referred to him as a kingmaker, a music mogul, and the ultimate hip-hop success story. But yesterday, everything fell apart when Cassie Ventura took the stand. His carefully manicured image was shattered in a matter of seconds, and Diddy's face turned pale as his ex dropped disturbing bombshell after bombshell. The courtroom pros were shocked. The man who once ran the game couldn't even maintain his composure. And Cassie revealed everything that allegedly happened behind those closed doors.
A brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs. She said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on, to the lighting in the room, to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate what is a freak-off, the freak-off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21, she was young, she didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend. Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argue the video is evidence of jealousy, not sex trafficking. And now for the first time, jurors are hearing what Cassie has to say about that and other.
Many years ago, Sean Diddy Combs entered the music industry as if he was in charge of everything because, in all honesty, he was. He started Bad Boy Records from scratch, transformed unknowns into superstars, and expanded his brand beyond music to include fashion, vodka, and media on the surface. If what is being said in court is accurate, Diddy's flawless image and polished persona as a mentor and business genius may have been concealing something much darker. Diddy was the model for success, the man who demonstrated that hip-hop could generate actual business revenue. At the time, the world was applauding his magazine covers and red carpet appearances. In private, Cassie Ventura was leading a completely other life.
Freak off and why she did it. When she talked about wanting to do it to please Sean Combs, that's when she broke down. Up until that point, she had just been answering the questions. She's a little soft-spoken at times, but that's when she got emotional. When she had to answer the question about if she enjoyed it, that's when she broke down, because she said, "I enjoyed being with Sean Combs." And she's
man who has always portrayed himself as the ultimate pro in custom suits, clean-cut style, and smooth talk in every interview. The claims being made today paint a completely different picture of the person behind the designer fits and polished image that Cassie described. Court reporters watched him roll in on day 2, looking exactly like the Diddy we all saw, and it left everyone in shock. He entered the room as though he owned it, nodding and flashing little smiles as if it were just another business meeting. But it was actually a serious, messy, and personal one. Witnesses said that his entire vibe changed quickly. And within 30 minutes of Cassie testifying, his confidence melted and his calm, unconcerned expression began to crack.
The physical abuse that she potentially experienced.
Yeah, she's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment, led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean Combs, loving him, not knowing about certain things sexually, and him sort of telling her, teaching her about that. And what you hear is someone that was young and she even said, you know, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better. But she's really telling the story of someone who thought she was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-offs that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-offs in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, "I know, you don't want to do it." And she said, oh no, well, it's not that. But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words,
Diddy's legal team kept raising objections as she described particular instances from their past as if they were trying to stop her every word. Imagine the man who created a billion-dollar empire, managed the careers of A-list celebrities, and closed huge deals left and right, writhing in a courtroom, completely unable to conceal how shaken he was. Witnesses claimed that Diddy couldn't even sit still while Cassie spoke. The power shift was unbelievable, and as soon as Cassie took the stand, all eyes were fixed on Diddy.
She looked forward to the freak-offs. Why did Cassie express looking forward to these said freak-offs?
when the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed the freak-offs? This is when Cassie got choked up and she said, I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs, and I really did love him.
And that is speaking to this.
Watched as he scribbled frantic notes and shoved them toward his lawyers as if he was trying to regain control quickly. Got so out of control that one of his attorneys had to throw up a hand to signal him to slow down. His face turned ghost white, as if life had been drained right out of him. He then began to tamper with his tie and cufflinks before rubbing his hands nervously. It was like witnessing someone understand for the first time that they could no longer control the tail. According to a court reporter, Diddy even acknowledged as much. Appeared physically unwell as Cassie meticulously detailed the past. Cassie's evidence continued into the afternoon. The courtroom prepared for its impact because what followed clarified why Diddy was losing it. Her next accusation rocked the room, and it's the kind of thing that might rock the music industry as a whole. The who had always controlled the narrative was now facing a version he couldn't control or spin, putting the empire he had built over decades at grave risk.
Have wasted no time getting right into the alleged abuse that Cassie Ventura says she endured for years. Ventura telling jurors, quote, he would bash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head when I was down. She also got into the nature of those so-called freak-offs, saying that they involved hiring an escort and they performed under the direction of Combs, saying that they happened so frequently it eventually became a job for her to set them up. Ventura said she did not feel she had much of a choice but to participate, that she feared that Combs would retaliate or potentially blackmail her if she did not. And she's had at times to she's taken deep breaths, pausing her.
The entire room fell silent as Cassie Ventura took the stand. Could hear a pin drop? Everyone knew this moment was coming, but nothing could have prepared them for what she was about to say. Not even Diddy's highly skilled legal team expected it to happen this way. After years of silence and keeping everything inside, Cassie finally had the mic, and she used it. She didn't come in screaming, so she started slowly, which made it hit even harder. She talked about how she met Diddy when she was just 19 years old. He was already a big player in the music industry, with millions of dollars in connections. At every level, she was a young model pursuing her dreams of becoming a musician. And from the beginning, there was a huge power disparity.
The defense is going to say is that this wasn't blackmail, this was not coercion, this was consensual. We know that Cassie started out with Sean Combs as an early person with someone who is trying to get her career started, and he was going to help her. That's what the defense is going to say, that she was starting out and wanted someone to support her. They did their first record deal together. That's something I think the defense is going to focus on, and had it not been for Sean Combs, she wouldn't be where she is right now. The prosecution obviously is saying he was in control. It may have started out as a consensual, it may have started out with her being excited about seeing him, but ultimately he took control of that relationship. He took control of her career. This is their key witness, and she's on that stand trying to explain all of the charges that the prosecution wants.
And according to Cassie, Diddy knew exactly how to of that. Her testimony developed like a suspense story, with each detail gradually revealed. It began with the minor details that controlled her behavior, which only got worse. Cassie explained how he supposedly had to know where she was at all times, and how he would appear She claimed that when he threatened to bury her music if she didn't follow his rules and if she collaborated with other musicians he didn't like, he would allegedly undermine the entire endeavor if he felt even the slightest bit threatened. He also indicated that he would unannounce her if she was out with friends, as if he was following her every move.
With Diddy. Some of those details we've seen in prior lawsuits, but to hear her on the stand actually giving those details, reliving those moments herself. Also, you have to remember, she's very pregnant right now. So I'm gonna be curious to see how long she makes it on the stand, how she's emotionally able to weather all of these questions. And what's gonna be interesting to watch is, you know, the defense from the very start in their opening statement said that she chose to be there. So I'm going to be curious to see how she responds to questions about, was this her choice?
But the biggest surprise, based on transcripts of courts claiming that Diddy even installed tracking software on her phone, Cassie said he would call her within minutes of her arrival because he already knew where she was. She also claimed that he gradually cut off her friends who could have assisted her. In leaving until Diddy was the only person left, it became so intense that the judge had to call for order 3 times because Diddy couldn't keep it up. When the judge checked him, he would shake his head and mutter to his counsel, making faces the jury couldn't miss. The courtroom was completely turned upside down when Diddy calmly pulled out her phone and handed it to her lawyer. What happened next was a game changer. Diddy would pull himself together for about 5 minutes before losing it again. It was like watching a man who had never been challenged suddenly realize he was no longer in.
Friend who's a producer. So I don't know if that's someone that we're going to hear from. We know that there were pictures shown to prospective jurors that are well-known celebrities, you know, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Lauren London. We don't know, though, how they fit yet into why they were even asked, do you know these people? Are you familiar with them?
So the prosecution is questioning Cassie right now, still questioning her.
The defense hasn't even got a chance to, I mean, that might change based on the timing, but, you know, because she's such a key witness, it's likely that she will be on that stand the rest of the day. We learned that Cassie referred to him as Pop Pop, and Sean Combs would refer to her as CC. The prosecution says, what does CC stand for? They said,
Her emails and messages were displayed on a large screen for everyone to see. And Diddy's face was completely shocked. He appeared to be unaware that she still had those receipts. These were texts in which he allegedly apologized for his violent outbursts and threatened to ruin her career if she spoke up. She also included messages that didn't support her story. The room froze in complete silence as Cassie continued to physical assaults that allegedly occurred throughout their relationship. She described being slammed against walls during heated arguments, but those messages were only the warm-up. Then came one of the most terrifying parts. The most upsetting thing that Cassie stated he did was choke her repeatedly until she nearly passed out, saying he only stopped when her body went slack and you could feel the change in the room. Cassie also claimed that he once shoved her down a flight of stairs at a Miami rental property.
on what Cassie has to say, and that's to be expected, right? Because she is the person who will likely be on the stand, according to attorneys, for 2, maybe 3 days. She's the one that was in the relationship with Sean Combs for over 10 years. So she's got a lot to say, and she's just getting started.
Just how important is Cassie's testimony to the prosecution?
I think it really connects the dots, Rachel. When you look at that initial indictment and what's being alleged, she really is the person that has probably the most information about this idea that the prosecution says, which is creating a criminal enterprise for Sean Combs' sexual desires. Something else that the jurors saw today that sort of connects it back to this alleged criminal enterprise are 7 photos of people that were very close to Sean Combs, one even his former chief of staff. And these were all people that Cassie Ventura was able to name and explain the functions in terms of what they did: security, driver, chief of staff, someone that handled financials. So it's showing that she...
And just when it seemed like things couldn't get any more intense, Cassie persisted. She testified that Diddy allegedly threw a champagne bottle at her head. It's missing by inches and it shattered against the wall behind her. The room went silent. It was the kind of twist that rocked the courtroom's foundation. Cassie claimed that Diddy went into a full-blown rage and trashed the hotel room like something from a movie. She claimed that he flipped a table, smashed a lamp, and even punched a hole through the bathroom door. But the most terrifying part was that Diddy went into a rage. Nobody in the courtroom will ever forget the moment Diddy, the man who built an empire on remaining cool, collected, and always in control, completely lost it right there in front of everyone. She claimed he kept her trapped in that room for more than 48 hours, took her phone, and warned her not to even consider calling for help. As this portion of the testimony came to a close, every single person in the room turned to Diddy. And his reaction happened like a thunderclap. This could be the image that haunts his career forever. As Cassie's testimony reached its most difficult moments, the polished image began to crumble and reveal something raw and unrecognizable underneath. He spent decades perfecting his public persona as a smooth-talking mogul who never folds no matter what. Even seasoned court reporters who have covered the most high-profile celebrity trials said they had never seen anything like it. He changed in front of them, appearing like a boss when he entered the room. But by the middle of his testimony, he appeared cornered.
When you look at her visually, people see that she's pregnant and looking like she's due any day now. So they might, have empathy, sympathy for her in that way, but we don't really know. We know that they've been instructed to be fair and impartial. As to what type of witness she's coming off as, she's describing someone that she was, someone she said that was trying to figure out who she was at that time and who she was allowed to be. Now you're looking at somebody that's almost 40 years old, totally different person, but even in describing what was going on at her at that time, taking drugs, trying to please Sean Combs, she's really just sort of laying out the case for her not having a lot of control. So I think that's the takeaway. This is someone who is making it very clear that at that particular time in her life, she said she did not have any control really over what she wore, what she did, who she was having sex with. She's a different person now, but I think when she talks about those details and even reflects.
He supposedly had complete control over Cassie's world for years. But now that she was in charge, he was powerless to silence her, call security, or issue a press release to clear the air. All he could do was sit there and listen to her tell her truth. As Cassie told the court, she had been keeping evidence for years in the form of texts, emails, and photos that were all backed up and concealed in locations Diddy was unable to access or remove. And then the moment that stunned the entire room came when Cassie disclosed that she had received text messages from other celebrities who supposedly witnessed Diddy's actions firsthand. The silence that ensued was intense, and nobody anticipated that turn of events. According to the court transcripts, these were not just anonymous members of the industry. Rather, they were Diddy's closest friends and business partners. Then, something crazy happened in the gallery, one by one. Members of Diddy's entourage who had arrived with him that morning and sat directly behind him in a show of support began quietly leaving. There was no drama, no noise, just silent departures. Co-workers who had been in his inner circle for years were the ones who had attended exclusive parties, backstage at events, and witnessed things the public had no idea about. That powerful front he brought in the morning wiped out the man who walked into court like an untouchable music mogul. And after hearing what had just been laid out, Diddy was sitting there almost alone with his lawyers. They didn't want to be seen anymore, and they couldn't sit through it after hearing what had just been laid out. Diddy left the room looking crushed, not even his top dollar. Security could protect him from what had just happened in that courtroom. The empire Diddy spent decades creating could be collapsing in front of us. Cassie Ventura didn't just tell the truth. She might have completely changed his legacy in a single afternoon. The evidence, messages, pictures, and testimony all painted a picture that is impossible to ignore at this point. The true question isn't whether Diddy will win the case. Rather, it's if you're wondering if his reputation will ever recover from what the world just saw in that courtroom. Please like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment below. We'll see you on the next one.